Sunset Boulevard is one of the most famous films about Hollywood ever produced. We're going to get into it this week on the Golden Hour Film Podcast. Hello everyone, yes, and welcome to the third to last episode of November this year. So yeah, it's been going pretty well for so far, I think, in terms of the films we covered. And when I say we, I'm talking, of course, about my guest host, Harry Bailey. How are you, Harry?
Very good. Billy Wilder back on the podcast. We've covered The Apartment. We have covered Double Indemnity last November.
Stalag 17.
We have covered Stalag 17, which, as Shane pointed out in that episode, was William Holden's Oscar win. Which, should he have won it for this instead? Probably. But yeah, Sunset Boulevard is another phenomenal Billy Wilder film. Is there another Billy Wilder film we've covered?
Yeah, I'm looking at it
the
now. The last weekend.
I feel like there's five.
The last weekend, yeah.
The last weekend, yes, of course.
And he also...
Yes, this is our fifth.
He also
Billy Wilder
co-wrote
film.
Ball of Fire from Howard Hawks as well, so that's like an ancillary kind of... We can maybe...
Also
credit.
one of the best episodes of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ball of Fire. It's so good, yeah. Like, everyone knows, I think, if you're a regular listener, my feelings of Billy Wilder, absolute genius. My favourite writer-director of all time, in terms of someone who has written or co-written all of his films. I just think he's just amazing. Any genre, comedy, drama, action, noir, like he's one of the greatest noirs of all time. I think Double Indemnity, and now this is obviously a film where this got 11 Oscar nominations, winning 3, including Best Writing with Charles Brackett. By the way, this was the last time he and Charles Brackett co-wrote anything together. He told Brackett after the film was released that he didn't want to work with him again and put an end to their creative partnership, which obviously Brackett went on record as saying was kind of like a knife to the heart. But yeah, he's could be ruthless when he wanted to be, I guess. But yeah, he still went on obviously to do some amazing work. But this was, I'd say, certainly the most famous movie that he had ever made up to now, and he had already won a Best Director Oscar, a Best Picture Oscar, a Best Writing Oscar for The Lost Weekend, which obviously we covered. But I think this, considering it's about Hollywood, and like I said, it caused such a kind of a Ferrari and such an uproar in Hollywood about the way some of its members were depicted and how it was talked about, and kind of how it was depicted about how a lot of them could be, say, morally ambiguous. I'll say, to be generous. It's a lot of people kind of angry with him for about kind of saying that he was kind of biting the hand that fed him, and for maybe not picturing Hollywood in the best light. But I think since then its creative reception and its its critical reception and its creative reception among kind of people in the industry, it's one of the most famous films, if not the most famous film about Hollywood that's ever been created. And yeah, I think it's very much deserves its place in the pantheon of that kind of subgenre. And then obviously as a noir itself, it's quite different than most noirs. In a Lonely Place was obviously about Hollywood as well, but kind of about a screenwriter, so much more low level. Much more low level than this, which is obviously the same year, but this is very much someone who was at the pinnacle of Hollywood. Norma Desmond, played amazingly by Gloria Swanson. Someone who was very much at the pinnacle of Hollywood during the silent era, and obviously her career since the talkies have come in has been on a massive downward slope, and she's now pretty much an afterthought. A lot of people probably don't even know who she is. That's how kind of long it's been since she was a major star. And yeah, like again, this is something that a lot of silent film actors at the time thought was very unfair. They thought that because of how kind of vapid and how vain her character was, that maybe again it didn't paint them in the right light. But yeah, I think a lot of people as well kind of understood what he was trying to say and do with this film, Billy Wilder. And what about what you think, Harry? What about your spoiler-free reviews about Sunset Boulevard? Because we've both seen it now a bunch of times.
I think this is incredible. I really liked the movie Babylon. I think this does what that's going for infinitely better. You could argue it has an ace up its sleeve, which is that a lot of the people who it is referring to are actually in this movie.
Yeah, very much so.
The likes of Eric von Stroheim, Cecil B. DeMille, Buster Keaton is in this, as well as a bunch of other silent stars who William Holden's character Gillis calls waxworks over and over again, which is such a great line. Obvious caveat that we give for every single movie written by Billy Wilder: don't expect us to quote your favorite line of dialogue, because every line of dialogue in this movie is exceptional. That being said, the dialogue in this movie is exceptional. I absolutely adore this. I think I've said this before on the podcast. The first time I watched this, I was really thrown through a loop because I didn't know it at the time. But Sky, whatever way they had uploaded it to Sky Cinema, had like messed up the edit and had the ending play at the beginning, which I thought was such a bizarre choice from Wilder. And then when I got to the end of the recording that I was watching, it just randomly cut off at like him saying the pool's there, and then it's like then the recording stopped, and I was like, oh no, and that just kind of threw my whole opinion of Sunset Boulevard out the window. So then I wanted to leave it as long as I could until I came back to it again, so I could go in as like open-minded as possible. Because although I really enjoyed it, I thought it was so stupid that it went the way it did. But that's because that's not how it went. And yeah, I absolutely adored this movie. It's one for the film fans, absolutely. It really makes me want to watch that movie Limelight now as well, with Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, about aging silent era stars, where it's directed by Chaplin. Apparently it's one of his best films he ever directed. And yeah, I absolutely want to watch that, because that was a big career highlight for Chaplin too. But Sunset Boulevard, as far as like Billy Wilder movies go, absolutely top 5 without question. But whether it's top 1, top 2, top 3, it just depends on your mood, because Billy Wilder's got so many amazing movies, like so many like all-time classics. If you were to take like, say, the top 3 highest rated movies of Billy Wilder's filmography, the filmography that remains is still better than like maybe everyone's filmography. His filmography is insanely stacked. He had so many all-timers, and this is one of them. Absolutely adore this movie. Couldn't recommend it enough if you haven't seen it. Again, Billy Wilder, dialogue is like literally perfect. William Holden is so good. His narration is so good. Visually, this is so amazing. And yeah, as I said, for film fans, this is it's literally like a pocket of film history, and it is done so in a literally immaculate way. I have literally no gripes with this movie. I think this is more or less it's more or less perfect. But yeah, I reckon we see if someone else thought this movie was perfect.
Let's go into the time machine. Yeah,
for the time machine. Yes, for those of you who don't know, our great friend Bosley Crowther. No, I'm joking. Basically, every week or every episode since we've started this, Shane has incorrectly guessed whether or not Bosley Crowther would like a film, and that is because, at least for the genre of film noir, it seems Bosley Crowther doesn't like a lot of great movies.
Yeah.
My question to you, Shane: did Bosley Crowther like Sunset Boulevard?
So I've deliberately I've never kind of tried to look ahead and kind of cheat at this, which is why my record is so bad. So I'd be pretty
literally like 0 for 5.
0 for 5. Having a little bit more of a kind of being able to see a little bit more of his taste, and the fact that this was so critical of Hollywood, and paints Hollywood in such a poor light. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say he did, because he doesn't seem like someone. He did enjoy this, I should say, because I don't think he's someone who seems to like Hollywood either. Or certainly likes films either. So maybe from that aspect, he'll enjoy this. I will say, Gloria Swanson's performance is something that's grown on me every single time I've watched this. But I can see if your first viewing, I can see it being a bit too over the top and a bit too mannered for some people. So I think a lot that in certain cases might colour someone's viewing or enjoyment of their first view. So from that point of view, if he didn't like her performance, then maybe he doesn't like this as well. So yeah.
Okay, so there is no like one paragraph or like one column review from Bosley Crowther of Sunset Boulevard. He wrote an entire essay on this film titled Hollywood Scandal, which he opens with the proof of the power, if not the greatness, of the new picture Sunset Boulevard, outside of the swarms of eager patrons which it is now drawing to the music hall, is the fact that it sticks upon the mind's eye long after it has been seen and agitates restless rumination upon its mordant and haunting images. The writer first got a gander several months ago when Paramount, breathlessly impatient to show the trade what it had, was hotly previewing the treasure for every editor and critic in town, and ever since then it has been twisting and gnawing in our mind. Not being hereabout to catch it again when it had its grand premiere, we raced down to get to the New York papers the day after its opening to read the reviews, and if you don't think that's a departure for a critic on vacation, you don't know. And then, checking back to work last Monday, we hastened to see it again in the company of some 6,000 people who seemed quite as determined as we. So you can see that a certain fascination has been worked upon this writer's mind by this strangely insinuating picture, and you will bear with us. We feel sure that we will add our few urgent observations to the excellent praise already published here. Bosley Crowther liked the movie and Shane predicted it. Well done, everyone.
One for
the Times
six.
Machine.
Get it.
The Times Machine has jumped the shark.
Yeah, finally,
yes.
we found a movie he liked.
Yes, he would then go on for a long time. He wrote a lot about this movie, something that you can maybe go and read in your own time. But yeah, Bosley Crowther very, very, very much loved Sunset Boulevard. And now, Shane, I reckon it's time for our main event. Shane, Sunset Boulevard, what's it all about?
So it follows a guy called Joe Gillis, who is a down on his luck screenwriter. He's had a few credits, but he's very much not someone who's big in the industry. He kind of has a few contacts here and there. There's a guy at Paramount. He has an agent. There's a guy at Paramount called Sheldrake.
He's got a guild card.
He's got a guild card.
It's a guild card.
He has some credits, but he goes to this guy called Sheldrake. Again, Wilder loved that surname. He used it a bunch of times.
Yeah, didn't he?
Yeah, but he goes to this guy Sheldrake, who he says likes him a bit at Paramount to pitch his new story about what's the story about? Some...
Oh, it's called Bases Loaded.
Yeah, some sort of baseball movie.
It's a sports baseball movie about a guy who can't shake his mob ties, and they try and get him to throw the World Series.
Yeah, and he wants Alan Ladd to be in it. Sheldrake, by the way, says he turned down Gone with the Wind because he says, who wants to see a Civil War picture? I love that. It's a funny little anecdote there. But yeah, no, the reason why Joe Gillis is in such need of a job is because he has kind of money men after him who want to repossess a bunch of his car and some of his other possessions because he owes them money. So after he fails to get this job, he says that he's already sold the car, or he's already gotten rid of the car. But then when he's out and about in his car, these two money men see him in the car and they chase after him. So he drives in his car and he pulls into this driveway on Sunset Boulevard, which he sees this old house. It's kind of not dilapidated, but it seems like there's not many people living there.
He thinks it's abandoned anyway.
Abandoned. He says it's like a relic from the 1920s, from the kind of obviously the swinging days of the 1920s, which the excess of kind of the silent era in Hollywood where some famous person would have lived here, but it's very much not the case now. It's kind of run down and it's not being well kept. So he hires it in the garage, but then he kind of this older woman catches the eye. She thinks he's there to kind of perform this weird burial of her monkey, and he's like, no, that's not who I am. I just need a
very Billy Wilder coded.
Yeah, exactly. But she's clearly like a bit odd and a bit just off. There's something little bit off about her.
The English would describe her as batty.
Yeah, she's a bit of a baddie. again, don't want to be a stereotype, but a bit of a batty old one maybe. But yeah, Joe Gillis is like, no, you got me all wrong. That's not who I am. But he's like, hang on, I recognise you. And he's like, he looks around. He's like, no, you used to be in silent films. You used to be a star. And she goes, she's like, I am a star. He's like,
yeah. He said, you used to be big, and she says, I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
So good.
Oh my God, Billy Wilder, how dare you?
One of the most quotable, famous lines in movie history, right there. And it's not the only one that he dropped on us. Because this is quite a quotable film. But yeah, and then she wants to she wants to write this movie about Salome, who's like this historical epic. It's going to be a big comeback movie, and it's going to be a kind of a first big talky movie. And she's convinced that there's going to be this whole big clamour for her because she has all these fans that write her letters all day, every day, hundreds of letters a week.
It's not a comeback; it's a return.
Yeah, exactly. So she's like, well, actually, you're a screenwriter. Why don't you just help me write this? And he's like, nah. He tries to play a coy then. He's like, well, maybe this actually could be a job for me, but tries to play a coy. Look, I've got all these other pictures on the back burner. I'm in demand. Like, I wouldn't have time to like do this on the side for you. But she's like, money's not an object. I'll pay you such and such amount. Just stay here for the night and we'll talk about it. So he stays there for the night, and when he wakes up the next morning, all his belongings, all his clothes are in his room with him. Her butler Max has taken the liberty of going to the apartment on her orders, obviously, taking all his possessions there. She's like, well, yeah, it's a job. I need you here full time, so you can stay here with me until the job is done. And he's pretty peeved about that.
Yeah, Max is played by Eric von Stroheim.
Yeah.
Genius casting. Absolutely genius casting. Honestly, one of my favorite ever casting decisions, because on the one hand, you have Gloria Swanson, who plays Norma, and she has a few lines in there really meta about Cecil B. DeMille saying that they did loads of pictures together, which they did in real life, the actress and Cecil B. DeMille. Again, another meta thing is when she arrives at Paramount later in the film, she says that Paramount wouldn't exist without me, which in real life,
true. It was true.
Gloria Swanson was their number one biggest draw for 6 years in a row during the silent era. And as well, Eric von Stroheim, Max, gets a scene later on where he... I won't get into the big spoiler right now, but one of the things he says is that he used to be a director, and that the big three promising directors of the silent era were D.W. Griffith, Cecil B. DeMille, and Max, Eric von Stroheim, which is also true because, again, von Stroheim also actually did direct Gloria Swanson in a few movies too, which is part of their relationship, we find out later on in the film. But it's so unbelievably meta, which is something to come to expect from Billy Wilder. But just for a film fan, I talked about Scream last week. For a film fan, when you see a director who just gets it and does meta, and it's not like a hand to mouth kind of thing, it's more...
It's not show off in any way.
It's more required rewatches. You pick up on things and you're like, oh my God, I'm like, that's so clever. Yeah. Similar to how Wes did it with Scream, I feel like that's exactly how Billy Wilder's done it with Sunset Boulevard. You'll get a name drop or a relationship drop or whatever, such and such knows such and such through this. And then if you do a little bit of research, you'll find out that that is the actuality between those actors or that actor and that director. It's such an amazing movie. It requires multiple viewings, but the plot itself is actually quite simple. It more so just requires multiple viewings for you to pick up on everything that Billy Wilder's putting down when it comes to the dialogue and the characters, which is something to be said about pretty much every Billy Wilder film anyway. But yeah, I just thought that Max the Butler is like an exceptionally, unbelievably well cast Eric von Stroheim. He is so good in this.
He's also in Wilder's Five Graves to Cairo, or Five Graves from Cairo. I can't remember which it is, but great movie, well, really good movie, and he's great in that as well as this like Nazi commander. But anyway, side by side. Yeah, so he is then obviously hired for this job and they're working away, and he's kind of transcribing her scrawls, and there's a couple of scenes where he wants to take out, but no, she wants everything in because it's her film, it's her baby, and so she starts. It's the first kind of.
He says, "Oh, there's too much of you in it," and she's like, "There's no such thing as too much of me. I receive fan letters every day. I people ask for my autograph every single day. There's no such thing as too much of me."
Yes.
And then there's like a little pan to like all the little. You scared the shit. Sorry, my girlfriend's in my room. She's trying to grab. Oh my god, I fucking goosebumps on my legs. Oh my fucking god, that scared the shit out of me.
That's funny.
I just thought one of the dogs like someone got in. I was like, I thought I left them out. I'm keeping that in. That was. I'd love to see my face because that scared the shit out of me. Anyway, yeah, Gloria Swanson.
Sorry. Gloria Swanson. Yeah, but anyway, Norma is obsessed with watching her old films, kind of on screening nights, and she says that she gets 17,000 fan letters every week, but obviously we later learn from Max that isn't true, that he's the one who sends them because he wants her to think she's still relevant and stuff. But yeah, that scene where he wants to take stuff out and she puts her foot down, it's kind of the first sign we get of her kind of starting to control Joe, and she eventually starts to control what he wears, kind of how he talks. She tells him at one point to take gum out of his mouth and stuff, so it's kind of a weirdly like emasculating behaviour and almost infantilizing behaviour. Like she acts like his mother, but also starts to think that she's his lover. And it's got this whole like all these layers going on to that relationship. And because he's like in this relationship that is financially kind of beneficial to him, and she buys him all these clothes, expensive clothes, and he's staying in this mansion, and like. It's obviously beneficial to him, so he doesn't really want to extricate himself from that situation. But he also obviously starts to like question why he's even doing this, and is this really going to like, because he knows the film is a piece of shit. Like at the end of the day, it's not even going to be beneficial to his career either. It's not like he's going to write this movie, it's going to be a big success, and then he'll have this credit by Joe Gillis that it's going to catapult him to future success. So it's like, is it really from that point of view even going to help him either? So it's got all these layers going on. It's so good.
Yeah, it's worth noting as well that Montgomery Clift was originally cast in the role of Gillis and allegedly pulled out because he found that that dynamic was too similar to the dynamic of the character he played in The Heiress and the titular heiress. So he pulled out, and then they get William Holden. But all the better for it. Montgomery Clift is amazing, don't get me wrong, but William Holden is unbelievable in this film. As well, worth pointing out, William Holden, we got a pretty unbelievable shot at the very, very beginning, which we haven't mentioned yet, but has been parodied and replicated to the nth degree, which is the iconic shot of, we'll say a man for now, a screenwriter, is all we know about him, floating in a pool, dead. Unbelievable beginning to that film. But yeah, just worth shouting that shot out as well. But yeah, their dynamic is incredible. Both performances are incredible. But as you said, it really does start to dawn on Gillis that this, although it's getting him out of a financial situation long term, he can always go back to his old job, but he doesn't want to go back to his old job because then he'll just get, slated, even though he is the only one who kind of took a shot at Hollywood from that kind of class of writers. He does realize that he kind of needs to do something to get his career going, and eventually as Norma becomes more and more obsessive over him, we get New Year's Eve, which is everything that happens on New Year's Eve in this movie. As I said, I think this is a perfect movie, to be honest, but everything that happens on New Year's Eve is just so unbelievably incredible. It begins with, as you said, it's kind of demasculating. She picks his outfit for him. He doesn't like it, but she buys it anyway, kind of makes him have it. He says it's far too fancy or whatever, and she's like, no, there's going to be a big party. Lo and behold, there's no one else at the party. It's just the two of them because Norma's very much in love with him. They tango, and there's a band, and there's Max, and that's it. And there's a really ominous, empty shot of them dancing on just this big, vast, empty but gorgeous looking dance floor. It's unbelievable overhead shot. And then she starts to kind of flaunt more gifts that she's gonna buy him, and enough's enough. He's been demasculated enough. He doesn't want her buying anything else. He gets up and he's like, that's it. And she says, you just don't want me to love you. And she slaps him across the face. She storms off upstairs, which, again, it's worth pointing out that there's no locks on the doors in this house.
Yeah.
Something that Gillis pointed out to Max, and Max said that's because she has attempted to take her life multiple times, and therefore it's a precaution, and that there's not to be any
impediments,
razor blades
to,
and something else, pills or something. They're not allowed in the house, which is information that Gillis wasn't privy to up until then. So, you know, what happens he can't really blame him for, because Gillis goes off to a New Year's Eve party that his friend is throwing, where he bumps into Sheldrake's assistant, who like dunked on Bases Loaded at the beginning. And we get, again, one of my favorite scenes of the movie. It's such a small scene, but just one that I really, really bought into, where we're actually watching The Studio at the minute. I don't know if people have seen that series. I'm kind of halfway through it and I'm adoring it. But similar vibes to those sort of dynamics. She kind of pulls him into the bathroom and she's like, look, I felt really bad about dunking on Bases Loaded, so I kind of looked at some of your other old scripts, and there's one that had a really good idea in it. And it's really funny. Sorry, I want to get the name of the movie that she's talking about, because the quote is
Dark
very
Windows.
Funny. Yeah.
Which, by the way, sorry to just on Dark Windows, that's kind of in a lot of cases in Hollywood, when they don't have an actual title and they want a placeholder title, loads of people will just use Dark Windows as a reference to this movie, obviously, like, and just as kind of an homage to obviously Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, there's also an amazing reference later, but I'll talk about that when it comes up. But one of my favorite references of the film isn't someone referencing this film. But yeah, she kind of says like, oh, I was reading through your scripts and I found Dark Windows. And he's like, oh, Dark Windows, you liked it? And she's like,
no,
not particularly. And he goes, oh, thank you. So great. But she pulls him into the bathroom and she tells him about how there's this whole teacher scene. And he's like, oh yeah, it kind of derived from an actual teacher I had, whatever. And then she was like, oh, it's real or whatever. And then they just have this really legitimately great scene where they kind of lean into like old Hollywood romance dialogue with each other, and they just say these like really over the top things to each other, because they almost kiss and they don't, because she is the fiance of his friend who's thrown the party,
Artie.
So they get very, very close, but then they both kind of pull away. But then they do this whole romance scene where they're just exchanging dialogue like bar for bar, because effectively they are two writers, and it's just so class. But then he gets told there's someone on the phone for him, and then he answers the phone. Sorry, he gets told that the phone's free, so then he calls Max on the phone, and he tells Max that he wants all of his stuff packed up because he's leaving, because he's going to live with Artie now. Max is too busy because there's a doctor there, and he asks why, and he says that Norma found the razor blades in his room. So then he obviously rushes out, and yeah. She didn't succeed in what she attempted, but basically, it's a really emotionally complex scene then, where Gillis feels very bad for what he's done.
Yeah.
Even though he's very outwardly said that he's not in love with her, she's just so kind of obsessed with him that when he then says that he just didn't want to hurt her or whatever, they then end up kissing, and then that whole kind of toxic romance is back on again, and they get back to working on that script again, and then they end up at Paramount Pictures, which again just it's incredible filmmaking, but it's just gut-wrenching.
Just before that, I just want to mention that Betty calls Norma's house because she wants to work obviously with Joe on the script, but Max says he doesn't live here, he's not here, he doesn't live here. So obviously, like, he's been told to do that by Norma, who's getting suspicious and stuff. And she then goes to Joe. She's out and about one day, and she's like, oh yeah, Sheldrake says he wants to make it, but he's like, no, I actually don't want to make it. You go ahead, you make it yourself, but I don't want to do it. But anyway, then we get to Paramount, and just it's excruciating. it's
Awful.
you feel so bad for her, but also it's also like maybe this is what she needs, like because I don't know, it's everything going on. Anyway, she's calling a meeting with Paramount, and she obviously thinks, oh yeah, Mr. DeMille wants to finally make this movie. Like it's gonna be the big thing. They're going to Paramount, and initially she refused entry because they don't know who she is. But then there's like a security guard there who's like, Miss Desmond, like, how are you? She built this place pretty much with her bare hands, etc., etc. So she goes into the studio, and we see Cecil B. DeMille, obviously, as you say, playing himself. Who's like, he gets told Norma Desmond's here. He's like, Norma Desmond, like, what is she doing here? And he's like, the last time she was here, the last time we saw each other, Lindbergh was flying over Paris. The only reason I mention that, by the way, is because Wyler, a few years after this, would do The Spirit of St. Louis with Jimmy Stewart playing Charles Lindbergh, and obviously depicting that very moment. So it's obviously something he just was fascinated by and stuff. But anyway, she's giving a hero's welcome by the actors who obviously all know her, and they all appreciate what she did for them and for the industry and stuff. But DeMille is kind of, he's kind of trying to figure out what to say. He doesn't want to just be an asshole, and he doesn't want to like say, I never asked to see you, but like he obviously has this whole history with her, and he wants to be kind and stuff. So he's like, find out who wants her, find out who wants to meet you. And then when he finds out she was been talking to a guy called Gordon Cole at Paramount, he calls Cole, and Cole was like,
Gordon Cole.
Yeah, he's like,
which is that's who David Lynch, the agent who David Lynch plays in Twin Peaks, is called Agent Gordon Cole, which is just such a David Lynch thing to do, is to pick that guy from this film to name your agent after.
Nice. yeah. So
sorry, one sec.
Go ahead.
Sorry, my shoes.
I thought you said everything was in the spare room.
I'm sorry.
Norma Desmond?
Cole is like, we saw her car. She has this car from like the 1920s or something that we think would be great for this picture. And he says, then DeMille is like, tell Gordon Cole, forget about the car, I'll give him whatever he wants, just stop fucking hassling me about this.
I'll get him 5 cars.
Yeah, exactly, So she thinks then that this whole thing has gone really well, and he kind of woos her and he's treating her well, and she thinks that's a sign of him wanting to kind of make this movie. And obviously
there's a gutting scene as well where there's a guy in the rafters who recognizes her, who's like, Norma, let's get a look at you. And he puts the spotlight on her, and then there's like a few like crew members who kind of surround her, and they're like, oh my god, it's Norma Desmond. But like, that's about all the attention she gets. But still, it very much fuels the idea in her head that everything here is going really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that night Joe does decide to work with Betty, because he had seen her on the lot, and they kind of start to talk a little bit more about the script. So he kind of sneaks out at night. He starts to sneak out at night and work on the script, Dark Windows, with Betty. You can see them starting to grow closer. Artie's away on a shoot. He's an assistant director, so he's off somewhere in another state. They are going to get married, him and Betty, Artie and Betty, but obviously maybe Joe is going to throw a spanner, and that works. But this is when Joe starts to find out that not only was Max a former director, but he actually directed Norma, and they had been married before. She'd been married a few times. And then Norma finds the script for Dark Windows, and she's convinced that he's cheating on her.
It's called Untitled Love Story, which doesn't do him any favors either.
That's true. Yeah. And she's convinced of it, that he's cheating, and then they're at work that night, and she's staring at him, and she confesses that she's fallen in love with him, and he's like, but obviously that's like a load of nonsense. Like, you've got Artie. Artie's such a great guy. What are you smoothing around me for? Anyway, he hears Norma then call Betty on the phone when he's back home that night, and that's when he barges in on her, and he's like, I need to just tell you about this arrangement, because eventually, like he had kind of kissed Betty, obviously, but after some kind of trying to pretend it wasn't a thing, and trying to pretend that she should go after Artie and stuff.
Yeah, so he tells Betty to come over. He gives Betty like a really icy tour of the house where he basically paints himself out to be like just an absolute scrounger, like a leech, who's basically stealing from an old woman, partially so that Betty runs off with his friend. Maybe he's realized that what he's done there is totally wrong, because he basically convinces her to leave, but as he's leaving, he points out the pool, and as I said, the first time I watched this on Sky, that's where it ended, and I was like, that's a shit ending.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah, nice one, Sky. But yeah, he turns around then to see that he turns around to see that Norma is staring down at him. She says that she's bought a new revolver, and then they get into this whole spat where we get another unbelievably dark and cold line where he shouts at her, "Wake up, Norma, you'd be killing yourself to an empty house."
Yeah.
Oh my god, what a line. But yeah, he's had enough. He's fully fallen on the sword and has accepted that he's going to go back to his crummy writing job that he had before. He doesn't care if he takes the heat for, being a loser and failing. He wants out. And as he goes out, she's just calling him and calling him and calling him. And then she's shooting him and shooting him and shooting him because, she uses her newly bought revolver to shoot that man 3 times, and he falls face down into the pool, which is where we got that iconic pool shot from the beginning. And then they say that, again, incredible narration from William Holden, where the press, the police, the ambulance, everyone is swarming. And he says something along the lines of, like, it's similar to when a new grocery shop opens in LA. Like, he's downplaying his own death, which is just pretty great. But yeah, Norma's just admiring herself in the mirror of her dressing table whilst the police are constantly trying to question her. And then she hears that the news people are outside with their cameras, and that catches her attention, to which Max cops onto that and realizes that it's caught her attention. And then he basically plays into her whole fantasy that she's currently on set of the DeMille film that she wanted to make. And he tells her that the cameras are waiting for her downstairs.
He's like directing her downstairs as well, yeah.
Yeah, literally. So then she asks him what the scene is. He tells her that it's the big scene where she comes down the stairs of the palace. Chills. She comes down the stairs as everyone around her is frozen, just looking at this insane woman who thinks there's a movie going on.
I think this is one of the best scenes in cinema history. It's so amazing.
Literally. She comes down the stairs. She says she's too happy. She can't say her lines. She wants to thank DeMille. She wants to thank everyone for welcoming her back. She's sorry for walking out on them, but she is so ready to make so many more pictures. And then, of course, she says, DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Unbelievable. And then...
The king of the brilliant final line, Billy Wilder. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's it. That's the ending. Unbelievable. Like... 5 out of 5, perfect movie. Billy Wilder, one of the greatest of all time. Love his direction. This is some of his best direction, in my opinion.
I agree.
But particularly one of the greatest writers in the history of cinema. His writing, maybe the greatest writer in the history of cinema. I might even go that far. His writing is so insanely good. Obviously, it's a collaboration between himself,
Charles Brackett,
and Charles Brackett, and those two are like Batman and Robin when it comes to writing. They are so good together. Or Batman and Batman. Sorry, Charles Brackett. I didn't mean to call you Robin there, but oh my god, like his writing is just like next level. You could count on one hand who could compete with his ability to write dialogue and just to write a film in general. Incredible. I think Gloria Swanson is incredible. One of my favorite performances ever, just because of everything that's like attached to the performance. Now, that being said, Gloria Swanson supposedly in real life was actually very accepting of the fact that she wasn't in movies anymore. She lived in New York. She had her own life. But still, whatever. Her performance is incredible, partially because of the blurring of reality, which is very much Billy Wilder coded. William Holden is amazing. How he got the Oscar win for Stalag 17 over this is kind of silly.
Another great performance.
The Oscars.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, another great performance. But like, if you were to compare the two performances one on one, it's dunks on it. Totally dunks on it. But I'm sure that was something that Holden probably chuckled to himself about. It's like that's the movie that's on the trophy.
That's just Oscars all on. The Oscars do that. Like, yeah, they just do that.
Yeah, it's just apology award.
Make up Oscar. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, absolutely incredible. Sunset Boulevard. If you've not seen it, we've spoiled the whole thing for you. Sorry. But dialogue, incredible. Characters, incredible. Again, just shout out one last time Eric von Stroheim as Max, because just, again, similar to Gloria Swanson, the casting is just so genius because of everything that goes into that casting. Everything that you associate with that casting is everything that this film wants it to be associated with, and is executed perfectly.
Yeah, I totally agree. I gave this 4.5. It's more than I've given it any. I've never gone lower than 4. I went up to 4.5 on this. I think it's an amazing movie. Like you said, all the performances, literally not a single performance, even from a background player, is anything less than brilliant. This is one of the only. I think it's one of only 13 movies to be nominated for Best Director, and then each of the 4 acting categories. So obviously William Holden, Gloria Swanson, Eric von Stroheim, and Nancy Olsen for Betty Schaefer. So yeah, it's got that going for it as well. But just an amazing noir. I think Gloria Swanson is one of the most tragic figures in Hollywood history because she just can't let the past go, and it's a really sad.
Norma Desmond, you mean?
Sorry, yeah. Who did I say?
Gloria Swanson. You said the actress.
Sorry. Yeah, Gloria Swanson as Norma Desmond is one of the most tragic figures in Hollywood history. So yeah, she just can't let the past go, and yeah, obviously other people pay the price for that. But yeah, it's just got so much going on, so much amazing commentary about Hollywood. Very meta. Hedda Hopper's in this, playing herself. Obviously, like one of the most famous gossip columnists in this. Well, probably the most famous gossip columnist in this era of Hollywood, obviously. Again, so it's got that going for it. It's got Cecil B. DeMille, Buster Keaton in the cameo. It's just name dropping.
Gloria
people.
Swanson as Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, it's got all these people name dropped to kind of give this whole backstory as well about like people in the industry. He was just name dropping people even who didn't want to be name dropped because he just didn't give a shit. Billy Wilder. It's like, I'm just going to name drop you because. And I'm sure those people in the fullness of time were probably glad that they were mentioned in such an iconic movie. But
yeah, Greta Garbo's an example.
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
Norma Desmond says that the only talky actress she respects is Greta Garbo.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an amazing movie. The best movie about Hollywood, I'd go as far to say, which I don't think is a particularly controversial or outlandish statement, but I still think it's true. And there's been obviously many, many more made since that want to either replicate this or obviously are inspired by this. So the fact that it's still the best and the fact that it still has so much to say and everything it has to say is still so relevant today probably isn't necessarily the best thing, but it's an amazing movie. And yeah, my camera's going to die pretty soon, I think, so I'm going to wrap it up there. But yeah, it's an amazing movie, Sunset Boulevard, and we've got 1 week left and 2 more movies left in obviously November, and we'll leave you guys to figure that out.
Yeah, I reckon as well. Guess that movie. We'll do an extra amount of them next Friday in our final episode of November. Next Tuesday we'll do what we watched recently. Next Friday we'll do a bonus round of guess that movie. We'll do maybe 5 or something just to really bump up that really all important leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. In the meantime, that was the episode of the Golden Hour Film Podcast where we covered Billy Wilder's Sunset Boulevard 75 years later. Crazy. I've been Harry Bailey.
I've been Shane Mahoney.
And that was the Golden Hour Film Podcast. We'll see you all next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday for another film noir. Go over to our Instagram to try and figure out which one it is. Goodbye.